Okay guys, I just want to go over a couple of real quick things here with you so you kind of get an idea how to make this jig work for you as easily as possible. This thing will bend a flat perfectly. I've bent several flats on this thing so far, and I've actually had some of them come out to where I didn't even really have to tweak the receiver a whole lot. Couple of things that you need to know. These two wings right here are what actually, as you begin to press the flat out, these come together and form the cocking tube portion of your flat, your receiver, around the rod. The pressing rod itself, you can see if you look at the end of that, is what the top of the receiver forms around as it presses down into the end of the jig. When you put your flat in there, as this presses down, this rolls the jig around this top part of this pressing mandrel. One thing that you'll learn from this video right away, I am not a cameraman, so bear with me. When you get ready to press your flat, there's a couple of things that you want to check first that are real helpful. These back corners of your these back corners, which end up being the bottom of your receiver when you're done, you want to look at those corners and make sure that these aren't spread way out. They want to be relatively square, and this one's in pretty good shape. Now, I've had guys ask me about, do you form your rails? Do you square your rails up before you press? And I don't. I square my rails up after I've pressed the receiver. That way I know that they're lined up correctly when I get my pressing mandrel, my rail squaring mandrel inside the receiver. What you want to do here is adjust these two wings. As you can kind of see here, you want to adjust these wings with these two screws here at the bottom. They hold these wings into position for you. Okay? So adjust your wings so that those wings set in these two grooves that are going to form the bottom part of your cocking tube channel, your bolt carrier channel in the top of your receiver. Just get them close. They don't have to be exact. Go ahead and set your flat on there then. And what you want to do is, the idea is to get your flat centered in this pressing jig so that you get a nice straight even bend. A couple of ways to do that, but the best and the fastest way is just lay your hand on this thing when you've got it in the press or on the bench, and just push down on your flat just a little bit. Put a little downward pressure on there and see if you'll see your forming wings begin to fold in a little bit. Okay, you can see that's just a little bit loose, but that's good, that's fine. If you've got it adjusted about like that, you'll be good to go. You can see where the edges of the forming wings are laying in these two channels. You should be good to go. These bolts here, these adjust the side-to-side positioning of your flat in the jig. And we'll get to how to center that in there in just a second. You got the same thing here in the back. You've got a bolt here on both sides that contact the bottom portion of your flat so that you can center the flat in the jig. Okay, so you've got your flat in the jig. Now we're going to set this pressing mandrel down in here. And if you're using a Harbor Freight press like I am, that thing just fits in between there. Okay. Try to get it centered so you've got about the same amount of the pressing rod sticking out of the grooves on each end, out of the groove guides. Okay, and then what we're going to do next is make sure that we have the flat centered to the center of this pressing mandrel bar. Okay, and the simplest and fastest way to determine if we've got this thing centered is to simply stick a tape against the pressing mandrel bar, press it up against tight, and measure where your edge falls at. On this side, measure this side. We are at we're at 2.5, so we're a little bit off center here, quite a bit off center. So what we're going to do is we'll loosen this. We know we need to come this way. We're going to loosen this one up a little bit, and we're going to tighten this one in. And you'll see as we tighten that up, it's shifts the flat this direction. Okay. Back it off just a little bit, and the jig is really, right now, it's in pretty good shape. So everything's nice and square and straight. So generally, if you just center the flat in here, get an equal distance, an equal amount of reveal on both sides of this thing, you'll be pretty close. Okay, so now I've got this, I've got it pretty well centered and adjusted in there. I've got, I'm at about 2 9/16 here, and I'm at about 2 9/16 here, so I'm pretty well centered here in the back. And then we're going to do the same thing up here on the front. Okay, I've got about 2 1/8 there, and on this side I'm 2 1/8, so I'm pretty well centered front, and I'm pretty well centered here in the back. Okay, and I want to point out too, guys, that when you're adjusting these bolts, which are adjusting the position of your flat in the jig, you don't want to tighten these down. Just use these to bump up against. Just use them to bump up against the flat to just kind of hold it in position to keep it from sliding around when you first start your press. Get your press all lined up. Get your ram lined up over this. Now I use this carriage bolt in here because I've found that by using this carriage bolt, it allows your pressing mandrel bar to kind of follow the flat down into the jig. I've used a flathead bolt on there, but this works better for me. If you guys want to put a longer bolt in here to take up the room, you're going to have to, if you're using a small press like this, you're going to have to reposition this a little bit. Not a whole lot, but a little, so that you'll have enough travel on your press. Okay, like I told you guys a little while ago, you're going to find out I'm not much of a cameraman, so I've got the camera set up here. I'll try not to get in the way as I do this. We've got everything set up here now. We've got our press ram is centered over the top of our pressing mandrel bolt. Our flat's in position. Double checked everything to make sure that you know, that we've got an equal distance on both sides of the pressing mandrel to the edge of our flat, and we're ready to start pressing. When you start on this, you know, go slow, guys. This thing will find its own center of the universe. I want to point out too that put your wings flush to the front of the receiver here in the front. That seems to work the best for me. That way you can kind of keep an eye on what's going on there. Okay, but just go slow. Give it a pump, wait a second, give it a pump, wait a second. And the reason for going slow like this is so that you don't get ahead of the bend rate of this flat, the steel in this flat. And it lets that flat form up real nice around that outside bar. It lets those wings kind of find their way into the bottom. Okay, just give it a couple of pumps. When you get to about right here, I kind of like to look at everything, make sure everything is lined up. My wings are good and tight in the bottom of the groove here on the receiver flat. Everything looks tight. She's coming right up.